Today, Musk now asking a federal tech check. It is getting spicy now, Steve.
Yeah, Carl, spicy to say the least, with Musk ramping up this lawsuit.
The View, once celebrated for its unfiltered discussions and fearless takes on current events, found itself drowning in controversy after a relentless storm of over 30 defamation lawsuits. What was once a lively platform for sharp opinions and heated debates quickly crumbled under the weight of legal troubles, financial setbacks, and public scrutiny. The show, once considered an unshakable force in daytime television, now stood on the brink of disaster.
I've been saying that I think Elon Musk believes he's president.
Over the top, it was like making everyone uncomfortable.
Really?
It was really over the top. You know, I mean, I think it's like sort of a passing joke of like, you know, a few passing jokes are fine, but they twisted the knife big.
Whoopi Goldberg, a longtime pillar of the show, had always been known for her outspoken nature. She never hesitated to voice her unfiltered thoughts, often directing her sharp criticisms towards some of the most influential and controversial figures in the world. From Elon Musk to the Trump family, no one was safe from her verbal fire. She thrived on calling out powerful individuals, assuming that her fame, credibility, and years in the industry would protect her from any significant fallout. But what she didn't anticipate was the sheer scale of the backlash that was brewing beneath the surface. For years, her words were met with applause, approval, and occasional outrage, but things took a drastic turn when her remarks started crossing the fine line between opinion and defamation. At first, it was a few murmurs of discontent, public figures pushing back against her accusations, questioning the validity of her claims. Then those murmurs turned into lawsuits, one after another, until The View found itself entangled in a legal battle that seemed impossible to escape. The network was in damage control mode, but no amount of PR spin could contain the disaster that was unfolding. As the lawsuits piled up, so did the consequences. Sponsors once eager to align with the show's fiery, no-holds-barred approach started pulling out. Advertisers grew wary of associating their brands with a show that had become a magnet for legal trouble. Ratings, which had once soared thanks to the show's unpredictable and controversial moments, began to nosedive. Viewers were divided. Some saw Goldberg as a fearless truth-teller, while others felt she had gone too far, using the platform to push reckless accusations without accountability. The unraveling of The View happened faster than anyone could have predicted. What started as a show built on bold opinions and unfiltered debates had turned into a liability. The backlash was relentless, and the network had to make a choice: stand by its host or salvage what was left of the brand. But with financial losses mounting and reputations on the line, the decision became inevitable. The era of The View, as it had once been known, was coming to a dramatic end. Goldberg's signature on-air persona had always been defined by her ability to call out the powerful without hesitation. She never held back when it came to figures like Elon Musk, openly accusing him of selfishness, arrogance, and being out of touch with reality.
I've been saying that I think Elon Musk believes he's president. I do.
Well, you can call him vice president.
I've called him vice president. I called him president because I don't know.
But in a world where legal battles could make or break a career, even the most untouchable celebrities were not immune. The Trump family became one of Whoopi Goldberg's favorite targets, a name she rarely mentioned without a sharp jab or a scathing critique. Whether it was Donald Trump himself, his children, or his associates, she had something to say, and it was rarely complimentary. She accused them of being embroiled in elaborate conspiracy theories, hinting at backdoor deals and shady political maneuvers that, according to her, were eroding democracy from within. But she didn't stop there. In a move that left many scratching their heads, Goldberg set her sights on an unexpected figure. Carrie Underwood, the beloved country music star, known for her soaring vocals and clean-cut image, suddenly found herself dragged into Whoopi's tangled web of accusations. Goldberg suggested that Underwood was more than just a talented singer. She was allegedly part of some covert entertainment industry power play, operating behind the scenes to influence media narratives and public perception. The claim was so bizarre, so out of left field, that even Whoopi's most loyal supporters weren't sure what to make of it. And then there was Joe Rogan, a name that never fails to spark debate. Rogan had long been a polarizing figure, with millions of devoted listeners tuning in to his wildly successful podcast. But Whoopi saw him as a dangerous force, someone who was recklessly spreading misinformation under the guise of open discussion. She lambasted him, calling his show irresponsible and harmful, accusing him of giving a platform to voices that, in her opinion, had no business being heard. She framed his podcast as a breeding ground for deception, a place where half-truths and outright falsehoods flourished unchecked. In the early days, it seemed like Whoopi could get away with anything. She had spent decades in the entertainment industry, building a name for herself as someone who spoke her mind, no matter the cost. She was an Academy Award-winning actress, a celebrated comedian, and a television powerhouse. Her bold takes and fiery rhetoric were exactly what had kept her in the spotlight for so long. In her world, controversy wasn't something to fear. It was a tool, a weapon that kept her relevant in an ever-changing media landscape. She likely believed that her celebrity status provided an invisible shield, protecting her from the kind of repercussions that would typically crush an average person. A mere tweet from an unknown figure could spark backlash and ruin careers. But Whoopi, she was untouchable, or so she thought. She sat at the helm of one of the most watched talk shows on television, surrounded by a network that, for years, had stood by her no matter how heated the debates became. She had power, influence, and the unwavering belief that she could say whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, without facing any real consequences.
But apparently, his wife has different thoughts on the reproductive rights after posting this video plugging her memoir.
But the tides were shifting, the entertainment world was evolving, and the very immunity she had relied on for so long was beginning to wear thin. Her critics weren't just shouting into the void anymore. They were taking action. Lawsuits were piling up, networks were growing uneasy, and advertisers were reconsidering their partnerships. The warning signs were there, but whether Whoopi saw them or simply chose to ignore them was another question entirely. Whoopi Goldberg gravely miscalculated the influence and resources of the people she was targeting. She had built a reputation for speaking without a filter, firing off accusations with little hesitation, but this time, she wasn't just stirring up controversy for ratings. She was stepping into dangerous territory, throwing out claims that were, in many cases, not just exaggerated but completely unverified. Her words weren't just provocative, they were reckless. And in the era of instant fact-checking and legal accountability, that was a gamble she couldn't afford to take. For years, she had relied on her celebrity status to shield her from repercussions. She spoke as if she were untouchable, believing that her legacy, industry connections, and the unwavering loyalty of her audience would be enough to protect her. But the reality was far harsher than she had anticipated. Once the legal floodgates opened, that illusion was obliterated. Over 30 defamation lawsuits came crashing down on her, each one a stark reminder that her words carried weight, more weight than she had ever considered. The people she had gone after weren't just celebrities with bruised egos, they were individuals with vast financial resources, elite legal teams, and the patience to see a courtroom battle through to the end. Elon Musk, a billionaire with a reputation for not backing down from public disputes, was at the top of that list. Goldberg had taken repeated jabs at him, painting him as an out-of-touch billionaire whose business ventures were nothing more than vanity projects. She accused him of selfishness, arrogance, and even hinted at more sinister motives behind his technological ambitions. In the world of television, these types of comments might have been dismissed as casual banter, but Musk saw it differently, and he wasn't alone. Carrie Underwood, who had shockingly found herself entangled in Goldberg's conspiracy-laden rhetoric, wasn't about to let wild accusations tarnish her career. Joe Rogan, no stranger to controversy himself, wasn't one to sit idly by while someone attempted to frame his platform as a dangerous force. And then there was the Trump family, arguably one of the most legally aggressive public figures in modern media. When Whoopi repeatedly went after them, pushing narratives that could be easily dismantled in court, it was only a matter of time before they hit back. The lawsuits began pouring in, one after another, and suddenly the dynamic had shifted. Whoopi wasn't just a TV personality making bold statements. She was a defendant in a legal battle that threatened to dismantle everything she had built. The network, once her greatest ally, now had to consider the cost of standing by her. You know who.
Stay away from the stairways. Because, people put the leg out to trip you going down the stairs.
Advertisers grew wary, distancing themselves from the controversy, while even some of her longtime supporters started questioning whether she had finally gone too far. What had once seemed like a never-ending ride of media dominance was now spiraling out of her control. It was one thing to provoke debate. It was another to make claims that could hold up in a court of law. And with high-profile figures prepared to fight back, Whoopi found herself in a position she had never expected, on the defensive, facing the very consequences she had believed would never reach her. As a billionaire tech titan with the power to shape industries, Elon Musk wasn't about to let Whoopi Goldberg smear his name without retaliation. He had spent years fending off critics, dismantling competitors, and proving that he was a force to be reckoned with. But when Whoopi unleashed a storm of accusations against him, branding him as out of touch, selfish, and even hinting at deeper, more sinister motives behind his ventures, he decided enough was enough. Musk didn't just clap back with a few sharp words on social media. No, that would have been too easy. Instead, he unleashed a legal onslaught so swift, so overwhelming, that Goldberg barely had time to process what was happening before she found herself at the center of a full-blown courtroom battle. His legal team, armed with the kind of resources only a multi-billionaire could afford, descended like a storm, dissecting every word she had uttered, every reckless claim she had thrown into the public sphere. It was no longer just about reputation. This was war, and Musk was going to make sure she felt every blow. But before Goldberg could even catch her breath, the Trump family struck. If there was one group in the world known for playing hardball, it was them. For years, she had hurled accusations their way, painting them as architects of deep-seated corruption, branding them as masterminds of conspiracy, and even hinting at criminal activity. But what she didn't count on was that the Trumps didn't just fight back, they went for total destruction. Donald Trump, a man who had built his brand on never backing down, had watched from the sidelines long enough. He wasn't just going to let Whoopi's words fade into the background. He wanted her to pay.
If I believe I have the right to make up my mind to go perform someplace, I believe they have the same right.
Of course.
And so
That's
I have
true.
to, I have to support.
Publicly, legally, and financially. And with a legal team just as aggressive as Musk's, the Trump family filed a bombshell defamation lawsuit against her, one designed to make an example out of her. This wasn't just about silencing a critic. This was about power, about proving that no matter how famous Whoopi was, no matter how long she had been in Hollywood, she wasn't untouchable. She had stepped into a battlefield with giants, and now they were closing in, ready to bury her under a mountain of legal action that no network, no PR team, and no fan base could shield her from. But then came the real shock. Carrie Underwood. Nobody saw it coming. Of all the people Goldberg had called out, Underwood was the last one anyone expected to retaliate. She wasn't a political firebrand. She wasn't a billionaire with an army of lawyers at her disposal. She was America's country sweetheart, a star known for her grace, talent, and picture-perfect reputation. And yet, when Whoopi accused her of pulling the strings behind the scenes of the entertainment industry, suggesting that she was secretly influencing award shows, controlling artists' careers, and manipulating the business for her own gain, Underwood did something no one saw coming. She fought back. In a stunning move, Underwood's legal team filed their own case against Goldberg, branding her claims as outrageous, slanderous, and designed to tear down an artist who had spent years building her name on nothing but talent. For Whoopi, this was the moment reality truly hit. She had spent years wielding her words like weapons, believing she could say whatever she wanted without consequences. But now, the walls were closing in, the lawsuits were stacking up, and the very platform she had used to destroy others was now being used to dismantle her. And the worst part, there was no escape. No scripted apology or damage control PR stunt would be enough to make this go away. The very power she had relied on for so long, her voice, had now become her greatest downfall. Carrie Underwood had spent years cultivating a pristine reputation, one built on raw talent, hard work, and an unshakable image of integrity. She had never been one to engage in Hollywood feuds, preferring to let her music do the talking. But when Whoopi Goldberg threw her name into a whirlwind of conspiracy, accusing her of manipulating the entertainment industry behind the scenes, Underwood wasn't about to sit back and let her legacy be rewritten by baseless gossip. This wasn't just about public perception, it was about her entire career. The accusations, though absurd to many, had the potential to plant seeds of doubt in the industry, casting a shadow over her success. And Underwood wasn't about to let that happen. She hit back hard, launching a legal battle that demanded millions in damages. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a declaration. She was making it crystal clear that she wouldn't allow anyone, no matter how famous, to smear her name without consequences. But while Underwood's lawsuit sent shockwaves through Hollywood, it was nothing compared to the firestorm that erupted when Whoopi clashed with Joe Rogan.
If I believe I have the right to make up my mind to go perform someplace, I believe they have the same right.
Of course.
And so
That's
I have
true.
to.
That the saga of The View had already spiraled into chaos, but this showdown took things to an entirely new level. What began as an isolated dispute over a Staten Island bakery, a seemingly minor incident, quickly ballooned into a nationwide controversy, further exposing Whoopi's habit of making inflammatory claims without verifying the facts. Goldberg had publicly accused the family-owned bakery of discrimination, alleging that they had refused to take her orders simply because of her political beliefs. She framed the incident as yet another example of intolerance, using her platform to call out what she believed was an act of political bias. Her words carried weight, and almost instantly, the bakery found itself drowning in backlash. The problem, it wasn't true. The bakery, a beloved establishment that had served its community for generations, pushed back immediately. They weren't making a political statement. They simply had a boiler malfunction that prevented them from taking large orders that day. There was no grand conspiracy, no hidden agenda, just an unfortunate technical issue. But by the time they managed to explain themselves, the damage had already been done. Whoopi's accusation had set off a firestorm, with angry social media mobs targeting the business, calling for boycotts and accusing the owners of discrimination. The bakery's reputation, built over decades, was now hanging by a thread, all because of a single unfounded claim broadcasted to millions. And that's when Joe Rogan entered the fray. Never one to back down from a heated debate, Rogan took it upon himself to set the record straight. He dedicated an entire segment of his podcast to the situation, tearing apart Whoopi's allegations and exposing just how dangerous her unchecked words had become. He called out her reckless behavior, branding it as yet another example of mainstream media figures using their influence irresponsibly. Rogan wasn't just defending the bakery, he was making a statement about the larger issue at play. He pointed out how celebrities like Goldberg had been able to shape narratives without facing consequences, pushing false or misleading claims without any real accountability. But this time things were different. The tide was turning, and Whoopi wasn't just facing public backlash. She was now dealing with legal battles, industry pushback, and a growing number of powerful figures calling her out in ways she had never experienced before. The situation had gone from bad to worse, and the walls were closing in fast. What had started as a simple talk show controversy had now escalated into something much more dangerous, something that had the potential to bring her entire career crashing down. The bakery, a proud family-owned establishment that had served its community for over 150 years, was not about to let Whoopi Goldberg's accusations go unanswered. In a tense, high-stakes press conference, the owners stood before a swarm of reporters and cameras, their voices unwavering as they set the record straight. "This is not what happened at all," they declared. "We have never and will never discriminate against anyone, regardless of anything. Our business has been built on integrity, and we will not allow these false accusations to tarnish what we've spent generations creating." The damage had already been done, but they weren't just fighting for their reputation, they were fighting for survival. And then, as if the situation couldn't get any more explosive, Joe Rogan stepped into the ring. Rogan, a man who had never shied away from controversy, saw this as a prime example of the unchecked power wielded by mainstream media figures like Goldberg.
So then the bakery has a press conference where they say, we've been in business for 150 years. This is not what happened at all. We don't discriminate against anybody regardless of anything.
He wasn't just angry. He was determined to make sure she faced real consequences for what he saw as reckless, reputation-destroying rhetoric. The bakery was just another casualty in a much bigger war, and Rogan wasn't about to let this slide. He took to his massive platform, one that stretched across millions of devoted listeners and followers, to dismantle Whoopi's claims piece by piece. With his signature unapologetic tone, he called her out directly, branding her accusations as nothing more than baseless gossip, the kind of misinformation that had real-world consequences. But Rogan didn't stop at words. He went further. His legal team moved with lightning speed, filing a defamation lawsuit against Goldberg. The charges were severe. Rogan's team alleged that not only had her comments caused damage to the bakery, but they had also been part of a broader pattern of reckless accusations that had now started to impact his own public image. He was making it clear, Whoopi wasn't just throwing around opinions. She was making statements that could destroy businesses, reputations, and careers. And now, for the first time, she was the one being held accountable. What made Rogan's counterattack even more devastating was the sheer force behind it. Unlike the network-backed structure of The View, Rogan operated independently. His podcast was one of the most influential media platforms in the world, with an audience that dwarfed most traditional TV networks. When he spoke, people listened, and when he called out Whoopi, the backlash against her only intensified. His supporters, an army of millions, rallied behind him, him, amplifying his message and flooding social media with their outrage. The pressure on Goldberg and The View was mounting, and for the first time, the narrative was slipping out of their control. This wasn't just a public feud, it was a reckoning. Whoopi had spent years dominating the conversation, dictating the headlines, and steering the controversy in whatever direction she pleased. But now, she was on the other side of the storm, and the forces aligned against her weren't just fighting back, they were closing in. Unlike so many other celebrities who backed down when faced with backlash, Joe Rogan went straight for the jugular. He didn't just call out Whoopi Goldberg, he dismantled her credibility piece by piece. With his signature no-nonsense approach, he exposed her hypocrisy, challenged her reckless statements, and made it clear that she wasn't going to get away with spinning false narratives unchecked. But his countersuit, that wasn't just about clearing his name. It was a message, a loud, unavoidable warning to anyone who thought they could hurl baseless accusations without consequences. Rogan wasn't just fighting for himself, he was standing up for everyone who had ever been unfairly targeted by powerful media figures who thought they were untouchable. And with his army of loyal fans behind him, this was no longer just a legal battle. It was a full-scale cultural war. The public spectacle that followed was unlike anything seen before. Every twist, every revelation, every counterattack turned into viral headlines. The internet exploded with debates, memes, and non-stop coverage as Rogan supporters flooded social media, pushing back against the mainstream narrative. Meanwhile, Goldberg and The View found themselves drowning in the very kind of scrutiny they had so often inflicted on others. And the best part, this is just the beginning. The fallout from this battle is still unfolding, and you can bet there's going to be plenty more drama to come. If you loved watching Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and even Carrie Underwood step up and take Whoopi Goldberg to task, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. So don't just sit back and let this saga pass you by. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because trust me, this story is far from over, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.